up, must be time for our weekly chat with our favorite ESPN baseball insider, Jeff Passan. Good morning, Jeffrey.
Good morning, gentlemen.
General question about strategy, because we've been having a good kind of just baseball strategy conversation, which I love on sports radio. How do you feel about loading the bases on purpose with one out?
I got to be honest, I don't know the exact scenario.
They were
bottom of the 11th.
Bottom of the 11th, tied. They bunted
Mooney
the
did
runner
his thing
over
in the 10th, so
right,
you got a non-leverage reliever in.
They bunt the runner over to third, and then they decided to first walk Langoliers to put him on first, and then walk Blade to get to Jacob Wilson with the bases loaded and the infield drawn in.
I'll tell you, I'm glad you laid out like the specific scenario for me. Yeah, I don't like it because you're getting to Jacob Wilson and you know the ball's going to be in play. Mm-hmm. Like, I understand you're looking for the double play. Jacob Wilson's not a guy who's going to be hitting into double plays very often. I understand you're looking for the force at home. Generally speaking, I'm not a fan of the practice, but particularly so when you have a guy who's putting the ball in play like Wilson does. He never strikes out. He's going to be like the bane of your existence for the next half decade, specifically because of that.
He's good. This Oakland or A's team, excuse me, is. We're going to talk mostly Mariners.
Call them Oakland.
I mean, I can't help it. I've been unable. They've been Oakland my entire life, but
exactly.
They're pretty good. I really like their core, man. They do some good things offensively.
I was going to say their offense is legit, and I think coming into this year, people had an idea that it was going to be pretty good. I'm not sure we thought it was going to be this good, but Nick Kurtz is going to be like a guy in the big leagues, and he's batting eighth right now. Jacob Wilson already is a guy, and he's batting seventh in this lineup right now. And you know, aside from Miguel Andujar, who's hitting .315 this year, you look at the names ahead of him: Tyler Soderstrom, 9 home runs; Brent Rooker, almost 40 last year; Lawrence Butler, guy who signed an extension; Langoliers, huge power. Blade hasn't been very good this year, but he was last year. Like, if they can get some pitching, they're going to be a problem for the next few years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so big picture with the 20-14 Seattle Mariners. As you look at numbers, as I know you do, as you kind of look at trends, and we get a chance week to week to talk to you, what jumps out now through 34 games of this journey with this crew? They're
good, and I know I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know already, but this is a team that's 17-6 since it started 3-7. To me, the biggest number, though, and the one that matters the most, this is a game that, because of the offensive environment, guys, is going to be based around how many home runs you can hit and how many home runs you can prevent. And over the last calendar month, since they bottomed out at 3-7, Seattle Mariners hitters have hit the most home runs in all of Major League Baseball, and Seattle Mariners starters have allowed the second fewest. And that right there is how you go on a 17 wins in 23 games run.
So not small ball.
Not small ball, no. And thank goodness for Cal Raleigh. He's got more than a quarter of the home runs by himself. But
I dare you to say that to Jay Buhner.
Yeah, we had Jay Buhner on last week. He said it was small ball.
I dare you to say that right to Buhner's face and see what he does. I dare you, Joe.
Wait, Jay Buhner said this team needs small ball?
He said that's why they were winning, was because of small ball.
The way that really, really good major league power hitters revere small ball will never make sense to me. It's like you have this panel on the postseason in Fox, or in the postseason on Fox, of Alex Rodriguez, David Ortiz, and Derek Jeter combined like 1,500 home runs in their career. And they're like, got a bunt in that situation. No, guys, you don't. You hit the ball over the fence, and that is how you win games. If you are bunting to try and score, you stink. Period. End of story. Like, get with it. I will not for the life of me understand the reverence for small ball among players who made careers hitting the long ball.
I got an idea. You know what we should call it, actually? And actually, the more that Jay kind of talked about it, it wasn't small ball.
It's not.
It's situational ball. This team is playing good situational ball. When it calls to get somebody over, they get them over. When it calls to hit a sacrifice fly, when it calls to get the runner home, when it calls for what the game calls for, they're doing it better over, this stretch of 30-some games than they had the last few years. Can we call it situational ball?
Yeah, just how about do your job ball? Like that's what it is.
Sounds too Belichickian.
Yeah.
And Jordan wouldn't like that, and she'd say, "Stop that."
And I would argue that that job does change over the course of an at-bat, over the course of the game. I think we've seen one thing I've noted. I think we've seen a lot more this year is less trying to hit a home run with 2 strikes.
Yep.
Right. I mean that to me is the one philosophical change that I think I could point to that I actually see with my own eyes. That if you the whole get your best swing off, elevate and separate, all that stuff. Elevate and celebrate, like all of that they're doing, and they're hitting a lot of home runs. But with 2 strikes, you're seeing more of that Nelson Cruz, Manny Ramirez, good hitter. Like, yeah, I tried for the home run, and now I'm going to try to get the ball in play so that I can, get on base or drive in a run or do whatever the situation calls for.
I appreciate a good 2-strike approach anytime. And I don't know what the numbers are with 2 strikes in terms of power, in terms of putting the ball in play, but I just go back to, I think it was my second week coming here this season, and there was panic from you guys, and understandably, like they were 3-7 at that time, and that sort of start is not going to imbue confidence in anyone. But we talked that day, I think, about hits with runners in scoring position and how they were dead last. And it's the same thing about approach, right? It's not the same approach, but it's the same mentality that there are just certain situations that call for a more mindful way to go to the plate. And I think that's what the Mariners done. And if you go and look at their numbers with runners in scoring position at this point, they're like middle of the pack. They've done a really nice job of figuring that out between then and now, and that plus the power combined really are the things that are helping propel this.
By the way, the Mariners are tied for 7th with home runs with 2 strikes. So, yeah, you can just take whatever I just said and probably throw it right out because it's funny. You look at it and they are still hitting for power with 2 strikes, and they're 20th in average with 2 strikes. So.
Yeah. Well, listen,
it's early, Mike. It's early.
All that tells me is that our eyes lie.
Yep.
And you don't know ball.
Oh, thank you. That's nice. I appreciate the second part of it. That's nice of you. Thank you, Jeffrey. That's a really, really nice thing to hear from you this morning.
It's pretty rich when you can't find your freaking AirPods. Really
I was
pretty
going to say,
rich.
I don't know how to find a noise. So who's the real idiot here?
Maybe both of us.
You were famous originally for writing a book about an arm, but that arm is connected to the mind. And you said mindful, and it struck me of something that Bryce Miller said yesterday, Jeff. This has been a stretch now of 4 or 5 starts that we have not been accustomed to seeing out of Bryce. And he's a pretty introspective guy. Here he was yesterday post-game talking about some of what's going on between his ears.
It's tough because this game is extremely mental. And, it's like even before today, 2 of my last 3 starts, I didn't give up any runs, but I still haven't felt like myself. And I think there's also, you have to have the battle within yourself to not press too hard and just to trust your stuff. And I think as the game went on, I did that, but it's a tough game. And at the end of the day, I got to just go out and execute and trust that I prepared. And, it's can't get too mental. It's difficult to do, but at the end of the day, you just got to go execute and not think too much.
Not think too much, can't get too mental. When people in my life experience are saying that, it is absolutely mental, and you're absolutely pressing and thinking too much. Anything that resonates and really stands out from the numbers, not just our eyes, but as you look at his numbers, or anything that jumps out to you in particular?
Yeah, the walks. Walks are just such the enemy of pitchers because that's something that most of the time, guys, is in your control. And I think one of the things that has made this Mariners staff so exceptional over the last few years is that they have a staff full of guys who strike batters out with premium stuff and throw strikes and do not give free passes. And I think there's probably, like, if you execute a pitch and someone gets a hit off you or someone even hits a home run, I'm not saying you can be happy with it, but if you are a process-oriented person, you can accept, you can acknowledge, you can recognize that sometimes in this game, a guy's going to get a really good swing off and going to beat you, even if you have good stuff, or a guy's going to get a really bad swing off and still beat you if you have good stuff. And that I think is where Bryce Miller is at right now. We can look at the walks, and 19 and 34 and 2/3 innings. It's almost 5 per 9 when this is a guy who over the course of his career coming into this season was averaging 2.1 per 9. He's more than doubling his walk rate. But at the same time, I think he takes solace in the lack of home runs he's given up this year. Only 2 in those 34 and 2/3 innings. So,
Jeff, what would cause that?
Small sample. Until I see more evidence that this is something that he's done for a half as opposed to 7 starts, that's what I will attribute it to.
I think our concern is that it's either something physical, right? He's talked a little bit about, the back has been sore or something like that.
You're talking about the walks. I thought you were talking about the home run.
No, the walks, and just, watching him last night, really the last couple of starts, I don't want to use this. He's labored a little, and he has looked, for him, very ordinary, which is not something I would have ever said about watching Bryce Miller pitch. Just didn't really have like an out pitch. Couldn't really finish.
I'm gonna counter any concern right now, and maybe this is gonna be egg on my face, but I look at those 2 outings that he was referring to where he gave up no runs, right? He threw only 83 pitches in the first and only 78 in the second. The second in particular I thought was impressive because of his strike total, but I love an outing where a guy does not have his best stuff, does not have the feel of the ball or the strike zone or particular pitches, and still has the gumption to go out there and put up zeros, where he's got traffic and he's pitching through guys with runners in scoring position and stranding guys, and still has a 0 at the end of the day. And to me, it's a nice evolution in a player's career when mentally he might not be at his best, when physically he certainly is not at his best, and yet he still endures and succeeds. And that's not something that we've seen through Bryce Miller's career. I think it's a gift to be able to have that, because he's not always going to have his best stuff, but he needs to understand, even in spite of that, he is still very capable of great amount of success.
You ever bird hunt, turkey hunt, Passan? Ever done any of that hunting?
No. I went a couple weeks ago. I don't know if I told you guys this, but I've been coaching baseball, or I coached baseball when my older son was younger, and another assistant coach. One day we were just lamenting. I think it was after a loss, and the kids were like, "This is such psycho behavior." The kids were like 9 at the time, and we were sitting there and lamenting how soft our kids are. And we were like, they need something. And he's like, well, my dad lives out in the country, and we can take them out there, and they can learn to do things in the country and have country common sense. And 8 years later, finally, we had country common sense camp a couple of weekends ago.
Don't you live in Missouri? You're basically in the country to begin with.
I live in the suburbs, you turd.
But it's
There's not.
It's Missouri. It's all country.
First off, I live in Kansas. My kid goes.
I'm sorry. Well, the
Missouri.
Kansas. I've always referred to Kansas as really the big city.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to really defeat the idea that there are coastal douches who go and judge where other people live.
No, I'm not going to defeat that idea at all. I'll prove that idea 100%. As coastal as it gets.
Unbelievable.
Why were you asking him about this, Brock?
All of this is to say I shot guns a couple weeks ago, but no, I've never killed animals, Brock.
Okay. No, I was just thinking when
You're
you do
a coastal
bird hunt,
elite at heart.
you do a turkey hunt, it takes a group. And I think you need your wife. If you're going to find this AirPod, you got to kind of circle it. You got to circle where the turkey.
Can I try to ask Jeff a couple quick baseball questions?
Okay, fine.
How many All-Stars on this Mariner team right now today?
Season ends today.
Well, probably the season doesn't have to end. It would just be the All-Star voting that would end. But yes.
All-Star voting ends today.
Cal?
Yeah, Cal and Munoz.
JP?
Nope.
Wow. 150 WRC plus leading shortstops. Polanco?
With JP, I don't think it's a JP thing. I think it's he's not going to get voted in thing. And then with the Mariners already having multiple guys, they will be loath to pick another.
Polanco?
No, not enough volume.
Okay.
Woo?
Yeah, I think Wu would have a pretty good shot right now, actually. I think if there's a third, it's probably him. And Crawford could play his way into it if he keeps doing this. He's been awesome, man.
Incredible.
We were kind of going off of Bradford Doolittle's ranking, and he sort of wrote about the Mariners potentially being in the market for first base help, which would make some sense. The Solano-Tellez combo has not done a lot, but you're hitting, so obviously you can afford to wait a little while. If they try Locklear and that doesn't work, and eventually they want to acquire first base help, I came up with 3 names just looking at teams at the bottom and who had first basemen that might be for sale. And the 3 names I came up with were Nathaniel Lowe in Washington, and then from Baltimore, either Ryan Mountcastle or O'Hearn. Any thoughts on any of those 3?
Let's go through all 3. Nathaniel Lowe is solid. He strikes out a lot, though. And I don't know how much better production you're going to get from him against right-handed pitchers than Rowdy Tellez. Tellez hasn't been bad, guys. Like he's hit home runs at least. And when you have a lineup that right now, it's like you're getting the on base from Polanco and Crawford, and even like guys like Leo Rivas and Mitch Garver. Like that's the thing, the guys you're not expecting and who aren't playing full time are getting on base. And really, like when it comes to those secondary guys, I think it's reasonable to want them to be good at one skill. Like these aren't the guys who are hitting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 a lot of times in the lineup.
Do one thing well. And hang your head on something well. Yeah.
And Rowdy Tellez has provided some power this year. So that being said, Nathaniel Lowe, sure, it would be an upgrade. Good defensively at first base too. So that certainly helps. Mountcastle, I mean, if you can get Mountcastle and O'Hearn together, that would be awesome. just because the weaker side of the platoon for the Mariners right now is the right-handed side. And I love Ryan O'Hearn. I think he's a really, really good hitter, but he tends to be a guy who succeeds only when he's facing right-handed pitching. So it's not going to be a full-time solution. But of the 3, O'Hearn to me would be the best guy to go after.
That's it. I'd have your wife videotape you searching this thing down and would go viral. I really would.
Oh my God, guys!
You're driving yourself crazy.
I'm going to go.
Come on.
I am.
Come on. How hard is it to track a sound, Passan? You're not 80 years old.
My ears, like
buy a
the
bloodhound.
one benefit, like we all have feelings about ourselves when we look in the mirror. And when I look in the mirror, I see my giant satellite dish ears. And I'm like, these things have to be useful for something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And No, I'm
Texas-
just.
Texas
I'm
Hard.
imagining you like Christopher Guest in Best in Show with all of his all of his dogs out in the country, all those bloodhounds, right? Naming nuts. Isn't that basically where you live?
Oh, have a great week, Mike.
See you, buddy. We miss you, Jeff. Good to have you on today. We'll do it again next week. There's Jeff Passan here on Seattle Sports.